Good evening, my friends. I would like to welcome you all to a talk on the import trade procedure. At the outset, it is very important to know the constituents of global trade or international trade. The trade between two different nations or among many other nations is generally known as international trade or foreign trade. This foreign trade consists of three different aspects, namely import trade, export trade, and entry port trade. Import trade refers to the process of buying or purchasing goods from the outside the countries where the goods and services which we require are not available in plenty nor abundantly supplied in the nation where we reside usually. So, for example, in India, the electronic goods were not available in the early 80s or 90s when color television sets were introduced. We used to purchase picture tubes from Japan, and the so imported products were used in the sets assembled by different makes in India. Here, due to lack of sufficient manpower and technology and updation, and we procured. So we imported these things as raw materials and made the finished products by assembling and giving brands with the different makes and specifications thereon. Now, we need to know the meaning of an importer. An importer is a person who is initiating the process of procuring the required goods and services for purchase from outside the country, as the said goods are not available in the native country wherein an importer resides. He will take all responsibilities, right from finding the right source, placing of an indent, up to the securing of goods to the place of destination, and at the same time, he will be complying with the rules and procedures prescribed in the foreign trade. Now, we will consider the various steps involved in the foreign trade. The following steps are involved in the process of import trade practice in India. First and the foremost step is finding of right source. Second one being obtaining the import license from the government. Then only placing of order or indent with the exporter will be initiated. Next, the receipt for the advice of the shipment of goods will be made. Thereafter, obtaining the foreign exchange will be processed. Next comes arrangement of LOC. LOC stands for letter of credit, a kind of bank guarantee by a reputed banker from the place of importer, that is the place of destination. Next comes securing of documents, followed by payment of dockyard dues, and finally clearing of goods from the dockyard. Then the process will be completed. We will discuss the step by step. The first one being finding of right source. The import trade starts with the finding of right source of the supplier of goods for our import. That is to search for the goods and services which are not available in adequate quantities in the motherland, where it is necessitated to go in for the procurement of the goods from the other nations. The importer can seek advice from experts, or otherwise search in the various websites in computer networks with the help of search engines and obtain the right resource. The main person for supply of goods and services with required quality and quantity and price level indicated by the importer. In addition to this, detailed specifications, the time of supply and delivery must also be taken into account in the placing of order. For that, we have to write, track, and follow the right person, keeping in view the schedule of his business operations, and also ascertain the contact details and connect with him. The second step in the import trade is obtaining of import licenses. It is not like a domestic trade wherein buyers and sellers will make purchase or sales of goods within the four corners confined in that country as they belong to same province and reside there itself. Whereas import trade is a business involving the international trade between two different nations. It will have an impact over the currency and foreign exchange reserves, where outflow of cash reserves in the form of foreign exchange will take place, and will also have the impact on the levels of current reserves in our currency. In this import trade, the government of India, the branch of imports and exports, will be having a continuous monitoring with the help of economists and experts in the international trade. And now and then will keep regular controls and regulate the quantum of imports. This obtaining of license is a mandatory prerequisite, like taking a permit in the form of license from the controller of imports and exports as to the said import of goods. Sometimes the Director General of Foreign Trade will also add some more guidelines in this regard. In addition to the Director General of Foreign Trade, this will be subjected to review by the Ministry of Commerce, and then and there instructions will be given from time to time for strict compliance. Now, here we need to comply with the foreign exchange regulations. After obtaining the license from the control of imports and exports to import the goods and services from a particular nation, the importer is required to comply with the certain legal formalities and regulations mentioned in the framework of the Indian Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999, which repealed the earlier legislation enacted by the Parliament, that is Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA. The third step is the placing of order or indent. Now, it is very important to take special care in the placing of indent or order. Generally, importer will place indent or order on the exporter for the supply of goods with the details in the indent. This indent is divided into two types, namely open indent and closed indent. An open indent is one wherein the importers will give choice to the exporter with regard to the quality, quantity, and price of the goods which are meant to be imported by the exporter. Now it is the responsibility thrown on the shoulders of the exporter. So he should be very care enough and take care of all the aspects. While coming to a closed indent, it is one wherein the preferences of the importer must be adhered to in toto and followed scrupulously. The choice of the exporter is not there. He is only bound to supply the goods and the services which are asked for with regard to quality, quantity, and price, along with marking and packing details ordered by him in this closed indent. Here, if there is any slackness or deviation, it will make the goods liable for rejection. Here, the exporter must be careful and act with all care, initiate the caution and tact. The fourth step is the receipt of the advice from the exporter for the shipment of goods. Here, the exporter, after making all the arrangements as requested for in the indent, will arrange for the shipment of goods from the place of origin and the port, which means from the country where the goods are being exported, and the exporter will also give a formal intimation to the importer with regard to the probable date and time and arrival of the ship, and this will enable the importer to make necessary arrangements to collect the goods. So this receipt is a document which will be helpful in hastening up the process, and hence it is called a receipt of advice of shipment. Now, here the fifth step is the process of obtaining foreign exchange from Reserve Bank. Because the foreign exchange is under the control of the Reserve Bank of India, it's not open for all the banks to provide foreign exchange. Now, by showing the receipt of advice of the shipment of goods and securing necessary foreign exchange to the exporter to pay the bills, this phase is called the process of obtaining of foreign exchange. In India, the Reserve Bank of India, the central bank of the nation, a bank with apex status in banking structure, it is given the authority and it is competent to release the necessary foreign exchange for this purpose. On receiving the application made by the importer and also making a cross verification with the import license. Next phase is arranging of letter of credit. The exporter receives a documentary evidence from the importer which was given by the reputed bankers located in the importing nation. This LOC, the letter of credit, shows the creditworthiness of the importer to meet the obligations and also for securing the payment of the goods imported. So this will be a testimony given by the banker and helps in initiating the shipment of goods by the exporter. Now, this letter of credit is also a bank guarantee undertaken by the banker showing the amount of bill. It will not be difficult for the exporter when goods are arrived at the port of destination, and also this can be realized easily as shown in the receipt of advice for shipment. The next step is to securing of documents and to process them accordingly. Here, usually the documents along with the bills will be secured for processing. Further, to enable the importer to make the payments for the value of goods and receive the stocks from the dockyard. A document of bill may be in two forms. It may be documents against acceptance or documents against payment. The importer has to take these documents on the payment of bill to the banker. Now, we need to know the documents of payment will be the document against payment is a bill which will be cleared only against payment. The dock authorities will clear the goods and then only goods will be lifted. The second one is documents against the acceptance, where if it is just accepted, the goods will be lifted and payment will not be insisted because the name itself will clearly indicate that the goods are meant with documents against acceptance. The next important step in this process is to effect the payments of the dock dues. After making the necessary payments as mentioned in the documents secured and also clearing all the payments due to the dockyard authorities, the concerned authorities in the dockyard will be granting permission for uploading of the goods from their premises in the merchant vessel which carried the load, which is meant for transshipment and also for lifting to the place of importer. Now we are in the final stage of clearing the goods by complying with all the formalities. Now the importer has to fill the bill of entry, usually in triplicate. Usually the entry will be in different colors, namely green, white, and yellow. Because these are in 3 different colors as they indicate the purpose or its nature. The first one being for captive consumption or own use in the manufacture of certain goods. Whereas the second one is for use in the business. Third one is for the purpose of using in the business with a view to re-export, similar to the practices in the entry-port trade, because this will enable the customs authorities to levy the dues and collect accordingly, and also will benefit the importers to avail any concessions if they are allowed in case of the goods are of 100% export oriented units, which we call them as EOUs. From this, we had an understanding of the entire process involved in the import trade procedure with a step-by-step approach, and this will help to enrich our knowledge in this particular field of commerce. With this, we thank you.